Imagine waking up one morning feeling tightness in your chest, shortness of breath, or so dizzy that you have to sit down on the edge of the bed. These seemingly minor symptoms, for many people, are the first and sometimes only warning signs of an approaching heart attack. What makes this condition especially dangerous is how silent and sudden it can be. No warning, no prolonged pain, just a brief moment that can change your entire life. It's frightening to realize that many people have no idea their hearts are slowly weakening until it's too late. The hidden culprit behind most heart attacks is atherosclerosis, a condition where plaque made up of cholesterol, calcium, and cellular waste builds up inside the arteries, narrowing them and reducing blood flow to the heart. This process can develop over many years without any clear symptoms. Statistics show that nearly half of all people with heart disease don't even know they're carrying a ticking time bomb until it explodes in the form of a major heart attack. That's why proactive prevention through diet is not optional, it's essential. In today's video, we'll explore 10 vegetables scientifically proven to help cleanse the arteries and support heart health naturally. These vegetables are rich in antioxidants, fiber, and beneficial plant compounds that help lower blood pressure, improve cholesterol, and boost circulation. By simply adding these vegetables to your daily meals, you can begin building a first line of defense for your heart. Stick with us until the end of the video to discover why small changes on your plate can lead to big improvements in your health and help you live longer, stronger, and more naturally. 1. Garlic. Garlic, with its pungent aroma and robust flavor, has been a cornerstone of culinary traditions across the globe for centuries. Beyond its indispensable role in the kitchen, this humble bulb boasts a rich history intertwined with medicinal uses, particularly in promoting heart health. The journey of garlic as a heart protective agent begins with its bioactive compound, allicin. When garlic is crushed or chopped, allicin is formed, releasing sulfur-containing compounds that are believed to impart numerous cardiovascular benefits. These compounds have been shown to exhibit anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, which are crucial in combating oxidative stress, a key contributor to heart disease. One of the most compelling attributes of garlic is its potential to modulate blood pressure. Hypertension, often termed the silent killer, is a major risk factor for heart attacks and strokes. Studies have indicated that regular consumption of garlic can lead to modest reductions in blood pressure levels. This effect is thought to be due to garlic's ability to stimulate the production of nitric oxide, a molecule that helps relax and dilate blood vessels, thereby facilitating smoother blood flow. Cholesterol management is another arena where garlic demonstrates its prowess. Elevated levels of low-density lipoprotein, LDL cholesterol, are associated with an increased risk of atherosclerosis. Research suggests that garlic supplementation may lead to a reduction in total and LDL cholesterol levels, thereby potentially decreasing the risk of plaque formation within arterial walls. Beyond its direct effects on blood pressure and cholesterol, garlic's antithrombotic properties deserve mention. The formation of blood clots within arteries can precipitate heart attacks. Garlic has been found to inhibit platelet aggregation, thereby reducing the likelihood of clot formation. Fresh garlic can be added to a myriad of dishes. For those who may find the taste or odor overpowering, aged garlic extracts or supplements offer an alternative, though it's advisable to consult with a healthcare professional. It's important to approach garlic consumption with a balanced perspective. While its benefits are notable, garlic is not a panacea. Individuals on anticoagulant medications or those preparing for surgery should exercise caution. 2. Tomatoes. Tomatoes, with their vibrant hues and succulent flavors, have long been celebrated in culinary traditions worldwide. They are nutritional powerhouses, and at the heart of tomatoes' cardiovascular protective properties lies lycopene, a potent antioxidant. Lycopene works by neutralizing free radicals, thereby preventing oxidative stress and inflammation. Regular consumption of lycopene-rich foods, such as tomatoes, has been associated with lower levels of LDL cholesterol, helping to prevent the formation of arterial plaques. In addition to lycopene, tomatoes are a rich source of potassium, an essential mineral that plays a crucial role in heart health by balancing the effects of sodium. Adequate potassium intake encourages the excretion of sodium through urine and eases tension in blood vessel walls, both of which contribute to lower blood pressure levels. Furthermore, tomatoes contain nucleoside A, a saponin that may have lipid-lowering effects. Cooking tomatoes, especially with a small amount of healthy fat like olive oil, can enhance the bioavailability of lycopene. 3. Spinach. Spinach, with its vibrant green leaves, is a staple in kitchens worldwide. Central to spinach's heart protective properties is its rich nitrate content. Once ingested, these nitrates are converted into nitric oxide, a molecule that facilitates the relaxation and dilation of blood vessels, which improves blood flow and reduces blood pressure. A study highlighted in the Journal of Nutrition Research demonstrated that regular consumption of spinach led to significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure. Moreover, spinach is abundant in potassium. The antioxidant profile of spinach, with compounds such as lutein and quercetin, further bolsters its cardiovascular benefits by combating oxidative stress. However, individuals with a history of kidney stones should exercise caution due to its oxalate content, and those on blood-thinning medications should consult their doctor. 4. Red cabbage. Despite being low in calories, red cabbage is packed with essential nutrients, including vitamin C and K. The rich purple color of red cabbage is due to its high concentration of anthocyanins, a group of flavonoid antioxidants. These compounds have been linked to numerous health benefits, including reduced inflammation and a lower risk of chronic diseases. Research suggests that the antioxidant levels in red cabbage are approximately 4.5 times higher than those found in green cabbage varieties. Studies have linked a higher intake of anthocyanins to a reduced risk of heart disease and lower blood pressure. Red cabbage contains more than 36 types of anthocyanins. Additionally, it is a good source of fiber, which can help lower cholesterol levels, and potassium, which helps maintain healthy blood pressure. Its crunchy texture and slightly peppery flavor make it a delightful addition to salads and other dishes. 5. Chili peppers. The fiery essence of chili peppers, derived from the active compound capsaicin, has been the subject of extensive research. Capsaicin has been shown to enhance blood circulation by promoting vasodilation, allowing blood to flow more freely and reducing the strain on the heart. Regular consumption of chili peppers has been associated with a significant reduction in mortality rates due to heart disease. A study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that those who consumed chili peppers more than 4 times a week experienced a nearly 34% decrease in the risk of death from heart-related ailments. Chili peppers also play a role in lipid metabolism. Capsaicin aids in the breakdown of fats, contributing to lower LDL cholesterol levels. Furthermore, the anti-inflammatory properties of capsaicin help mitigate the risk of chronic inflammation, a known contributor to various cardiovascular diseases. However, it's essential to consume them in moderation, as excessive intake may lead to gastrointestinal discomfort. 6. Broccoli. Broccoli is a formidable ally in promoting cardiovascular health. One of its standout features is its rich content of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds, which work synergistically to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. Moreover, broccoli is an excellent source of dietary fiber. A single cup of cooked broccoli provides about 5 grams of fiber. Diets high in fiber are associated with a reduced risk of heart disease, as fiber aids in lowering cholesterol levels and promoting healthy blood pressure. In addition to its fiber content, broccoli contains essential minerals like potassium and magnesium. Research indicates that regular consumption of cruciferous vegetables, including broccoli, is linked to a reduction in arterial calcification. A recent study also demonstrated that individuals who consumed soups made from broccoli experienced a more significant reduction in systolic blood pressure. 7. Pumpkin and pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin is more than just a seasonal delight. It's a nutritional powerhouse. One of the key components contributing to pumpkin's heart-healthy properties is its rich potassium content. A diet high in potassium is associated with a reduced risk of hypertension and stroke. In addition to potassium, pumpkin is abundant in antioxidants, including beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A. These antioxidants help prevent the oxidation of LDL cholesterol. The fiber content in pumpkin further enhances its cardiovascular benefits. Incorporating pumpkin seeds into your diet can also be beneficial. These seeds are rich in magnesium, an essential mineral for maintaining a steady heartbeat and normal blood pressure. Additionally, pumpkin seeds provide healthy fats and antioxidants. 8. Beets. Beets, with their characteristic ruby red color, are another root vegetable offering significant benefits for heart health. Like spinach, beets are rich in natural nitrates. The body converts these nitrates into nitric oxide, a crucial molecule that helps relax and dilate blood vessels. This process improves blood flow, which can lower blood pressure and reduce the load on the heart. Beyond nitrates, beets contain powerful antioxidants called betalains, which not only give beets their vibrant color, but also help combat oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. Beets are also a good source of fiber, which helps manage blood sugar levels and reduce cholesterol. You can enjoy beets boiled, roasted, juiced, or added to salads. 9. Asparagus. Asparagus is a nutrient-dense vegetable, notable for its high folate, vitamin B9 content. Folate plays a critical role in reducing homocysteine levels in the blood. High homocysteine levels are linked to an increased risk of heart disease. Therefore, consuming adequate folate from food sources like asparagus can help protect cardiovascular health. Asparagus also contains antioxidants such as vitamin C, vitamin E, and glutathione, which help protect cells from free radical damage. It also provides a significant amount of potassium, which helps regulate blood pressure, and fiber, which supports digestion and may help lower cholesterol. Asparagus can be prepared by steaming, roasting, or stir-frying. 10. Bell peppers. Bell peppers, especially the red, yellow, and orange varieties, are an excellent source of heart-healthy nutrients. They are rich in vitamin C, a potent antioxidant that can help prevent arterial damage and boost the immune system. Bell peppers also contain various carotenoids, including beta-carotene, which the body can convert to vitamin A, as well as other antioxidants like capsanthin in red bell peppers. These compounds help reduce inflammation and protect against oxidative stress. Additionally, bell peppers provide a good amount of potassium and fiber. They can be eaten raw in salads, added to stir-fries, or roasted to bring out their natural sweetness. Additional advice and a holistic approach. Balanced consumption. While these vegetables are very beneficial, it's important to consume them as part of a varied and balanced diet. No single food is a magic bullet. Consult a professional. If you have any pre-existing health conditions, are taking medications, especially blood thinners or blood pressure medications, or have any concerns about dietary changes, always consult your doctor or a registered dietitian. This is particularly important when considering potential interactions such as the vitamin K content in leafy greens with blood thinners or the oxalate content in spinach for individuals with a history of kidney stones. Overall lifestyle. Combine a healthy diet with regular physical activity, effective stress management, and adequate sleep for optimal cardiovascular health. By incorporating these wonderful vegetables into your daily meals and adopting a holistic, healthy lifestyle, you are taking proactive and powerful steps to protect your heart and enhance your overall well-being. Remember, small, sustainable changes can make a big impact on your long-term health.